name's Roisin O'Dooley. I'm a solicitor at RWK Goodman in Bath. As I've just said, I'm also incoming chair for Bristol junior lawyers, so I have quite a big role with the junior community in Bristol. And I also sit on committee of Bristol Law Society, and I'm here in that capacity today. Today's talk is one of the Bristol Law Society Lunch and Learn webinars, which we've aimed at the junior end of the profession. And Sheldon's talk today on planning for progression is actually one of the sort of flagship talks that we're running. Sheldon is a director at Hayes and works very closely with Bristol Law Society, so he's got a lot of insight into the community here. Sheldon has very kindly organised for two fantastic women in the industry to join us today and share some of their insight into planning for progression. So he will introduce them shortly. Just to let you know before we get started with today's webinar, this webinar is being recorded. So if you'd like to put any Q&As to Sheldon or to his guests today, if you could pop those in the Q&A box, that ensures your anonymity. When I read out any questions towards the end, I will make sure that they're anonymized, so don't panic too much. But just a reminder that we are recording. The slides and recording of the webinar will be circulated normally within a few days of the event, could be up to a week. And a little plug as well for anybody who is in the area of property and conveyancing. We've got another lunch and learn tomorrow, Con 29, with Wessex Searches. So if that's your area and you're interested, then you can still sign up for tomorrow's talk. But without further ado, I'd really like to get going with today's talk, which we're all very excited for, and I think there's going to be a lot of questions. So I'd love to hand over now to Sheldon Carlisle, Director at Hayes.
Brilliant. Thanks, Roisin. Much appreciated. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome this afternoon from me to our Planning for Progression Masterclass. On behalf of Hayes Legal and Bristol Law Society, we're just so delighted that you could join us today. As Roisin said, my name's Sheldon Carlisle. I'm a director at Hayes. I've been in the Southwest legal market for probably about 20 years now. I started out as a real estate lawyer working for Bevan Britton and for Osborne Clarke, and for the past 13 years or so I've been supporting lawyers on their career journeys along the way. In terms of today and what today is all about, our main aim from today is to provide you with some really hopefully helpful practical tools and advice on how you can create, develop and execute a long-term successful career plan for your own personal career. In terms of what we're going to cover, we'll be first of all starting out with an overview of the traditional typical lawyer's career and what you can be doing now to start planning for each development along the way on that journey. We'll look in particular detail about what it means to build a case for your own progression. We'll look at the options moving firms might offer, and then I'm absolutely delighted that we'll have a panel discussion a bit later on where Shelby Payne from Bevan Britton and Danielle Spalding from Foot Anstey will be joining us to share some of their pearls of wisdom and experience gained from going through promotion opportunities in their own careers. So hopefully that'll be really, really useful for you to hear from people who are walking it through themselves. At the end, there'll be loads of time for Q&A, so don't worry, we'll try and get through all of them if we can. If you can just type any questions that occur to you in the Q&A box. As Roisin said, they're anonymous, so we'll do our level best to get through all of those a bit later. So without further ado, let's get cracking. So first of all, what I wanted to look at was the career path for lawyers. Now, what I'm not going to spend a lot of time on today is looking at obviously the journey to qualification. For some of you, you might be junior lawyers at the moment, carrying out your training contract. You might be a paralegal or senior paralegal looking ahead. We do a separate talk on qualification and the routes to qualification in February. I'll share some details in a while. But what the purpose of today's talk is really looking at your whole career in terms of looking forward all the way through to, for those that wanted, partnership, and just what you need to be thinking of right at the early stages as you span the whole length of your career. So I want to look at that career trajectory as it's shown on the left there, and as well as looking at alternatives. If private practice isn't always going to be for you, there are plenty of opportunities that you might look at elsewhere. So the traditional career path is shown there on the screen. Once you hit qualification, and the good news is there's so many diverse ways to qualification now. One of the exciting things about this year is we're now seeing the very first solicitor apprentices coming through to qualification this year from when they were launched back in 2018. So the industry is becoming so much more diverse, and routes to qualification are becoming so much more diverse. But once you hit qualification, depending on the firm you're in, the titles for the various levels might vary a little bit, but you tend to start off as an NQ. You're then either an assistant solicitor, or in some firms you're an associate from the word go. The next step is getting promoted to mid-level associate, and then across to senior associate. In some places it might be supervising associate or managing associate. And then your next step up is to director or off counsel, different terminology used in different firms. And then obviously it's the step into either salary partnership, or in some cases straight into equity partnership. And that's the traditional historical route to partnership that you might see in private practice. But obviously private practice isn't going to be for everyone. And the great thing is that for those who are maybe thinking, is private practice for me? There are plenty of other avenues you can explore in your career. For some who want to stay in private practice but do something different, you can become a professional support lawyer, a PSL. That's a non-fee earning support function within your department. For those that want to move out of private practice, you might want to go in-house, join a business as an in-house counsel. Some join the public sector, perhaps joining local government or central government as an in-house counsel there. Some might want to exit the legal practice completely and do something completely different with your experience. The great thing is there are so many avenues that you can look at as you go through your career. You're not limited to just staying in private practice or even staying in law. You can take what you've done and apply it in many other worthwhile capacities. I guess right at the start of your career, and for some of you, you might have been thinking about this for a while. For some of you, you might not even planned out your career and worked out what you want or where you see your career going. What I always say is that the starting point is to ask yourself the big question, and it's never too early to ask this question, and that's, where do you want to go with your career? And what type of lawyer do you want to be? You might have a really clear idea on that question, or you might still be working that out as you're working your way through the stages of your career. But what I always encourage lawyers to do is to find out what brings you joy in what you do. What is it that fulfills you? What is it that excites you? What is it that you really see yourself gaining life from? And I say, wherever that life is, that's where to focus and to invest in your career. Because the legal career is a very long one, and it's a very tough job. It's a job that demands so much of you. You want to make sure you're enjoying it, and you want to make sure that you're investing time and energy in the place that actually will make you happy. And so once you've thought about that, and that's not a one-off decision, that might change over time in your career, and you can keep revisiting it. But once you've got a good idea of where you want to invest and where you want to go with your career, I always say, find yourself a champion. That's someone within your organization that you respect, who's in management, who's relatively senior, and get that person involved in your career. It could be your supervising partner. It could be someone within your department. Ideally, it's someone who gets what you do or where you want to go. And it's someone who can help you on your journey, someone who can shape your thinking, who can provoke you, who can challenge you, and hopefully assist you as you look ahead to your first opportunity for promotion. And the best advice I can give you, once you've identified that person, once you know what you want to do, is be brave and have the conversation with your supervising partner, your line manager, and tell them where you want to go, what you want to do. Start thinking early and have the conversation early, because they can help you shape your journey. They can help you shape the opportunity that lies ahead and help you direct your paths. So once you've got an idea of where you want to go, once you're starting to think about it, what I then say is, what's important is for you to start building your own personal plan. Now, this doesn't start with a document. What this is it's a sequence of ideas. It's a sequence of thoughts that then will consolidate down into a document. And there are lots of different components that will come into play way before you ever start drafting what your business plan is for your first promotion. The thing to do is to start building it right from the word go, right from when you're qualifying, right from when you're starting out in your career. Start building your plan, and it will have various building blocks. I'm going to look at these in a moment, but they'll consist of things like your technical abilities. What are you good at? What do you need to invest in on the technical side? Your client service, what is important to you in terms of your client relationships and how you build those. Winning potential work, that is going to be a critical and vital part of every bit of your career journey, is being able to win clients round and get them involved in supporting you on your journey. Your people skills, embodying the culture of your firm, that's a critical bit that begins right from the start of your career. And then finally, all of these bits will come together in your own personal business plan. I don't know if any of you remember, but back in the old days, we used to have a national record of achievement at school where you'd almost pull together your different skills in one document that you would take to job interviews to evidence what you had done in your schooling career. And it's a bit like that. It's a bit like a CV. You start consolidating all the areas that you've been working on and investing in into your own business plan. So let's just dive a bit deeper into each of those. So firstly, technical skills. This starts with asking yourself, what am I good at and what do I want to be known for as a lawyer? Some lawyers, we all know them, are just out and out technical lawyers. They're the gurus in the office, the one you go to if you've got a question or you don't know the answer to. I used to sit next to one at Bevan Britton, who's still there now at the moment, so I won't mention their name, who was just the biggest brain in real estate and just knew the answer to everything. And I had a chance to sit next to him and just listen and ask questions, maybe too many questions. But I just wanted to learn from this person. Now, you might be one of those people who wants to be what I'd call a subject matter expert. So that's someone who just knows the answers on the technical side of everything. And that holds much value in a department. You might be one of those people that wants to invest in that. I say go for it. Really develop it and show that you can use your knowledge to help others in your department or your firm. Some of you might want to be genuine thought leaders. So what's that? That's someone who loves writing about developments in the law, things that they're seeing in practice, things that they feel matter to their clients. Love writing articles or putting things on LinkedIn. You don't have to be a partner to do that. I say get involved right at the start of your career. Stick your neck out and volunteer to write a client update on some new development in case law or something particular to your practice area. You're never too early in your career to evidence that you want to be a thought leader. You might love training, and both internally and externally. You might love passing on what you've learned to others in your department. Get volunteering. If you have departmental training sessions, why not volunteer to do a session on something that you are actively involved in? And that can be both internal and to clients. What I say is when it comes to technical skills, you want to showcase the things that really shine a light on your skills. And you're never too early in your career to start doing that. Client service. I remember running one of these events a couple of years ago, it was about 4 years ago, and we had a partner on the panel talking about her career journey right from the start as a legal secretary all the way through to partner. Her name's Caroline Turner Inskip, and she's a partner at Simmons & Simmons in the real estate department. And when she was talking about one of the things she wished she had realized as a junior lawyer that she knows now, she basically said, I wish I'd realized that we're all salespeople in law. And lawyers don't like to think of themselves as salespeople, but in reality, if you're in professional services, you're a salesperson. Because every day that you are providing service to your clients, you are selling them the benefit of them using you over all the other lawyers in the market. You are selling the reason why they should return to you for repeat instructions. And I think being good salespeople is actually a brilliant skill for all lawyers at all levels of their careers. Because managing client relationships is what's going to guarantee you promotion in your own career. So how do you build into that? Well, there's a few building blocks. Number one, developing your soft skills. How do you present? How do you network? How do you communicate with your clients? If those are things that you find hard, get opportunities to invest. Stick your neck out and ask for training, ask for opportunities to get involved in training sessions or presenting at a networking event. Go for it and invest early on. How well do you know your clients? In-house secondments are a wonderful opportunity for you to get under the skin of a client, to truly understand the drivers that matter to them as they build their businesses. If you get the opportunity to go for an in-house secondment or ask for one, even if one isn't just presented to you, what a great way to really show that you are passionate about client service and you want to know your clients. Endorsements. If you do a good job for your client, don't be afraid to ask them to give you a testimonial. What a great thing to include in any business plan you're preparing for your own promotion internally, to show what your clients think about you and the service that you've provided. And finally, financial performance and financial hygiene. The thing is, as you progress through your career, it's not just about your billings, which are very important, but it's about your business development. And you need to start balancing those hours, showing that even as you spend more time as you work your way through your career, business developing and winning clients, that you can still keep your financial billings high. And it's also about how good are you at managing your write-offs, keeping them low, maybe getting involved in billing and being able to do that effectively, dealing with lockup and when your debts are tied up and what have you, be able to turn that into cash in the firm's coffers quickly. Showing an awareness of the importance of these things shows commerciality and is so critically important as you build your client service portfolio. Winning work potential. In the olden days, it was the partners that went out and won all the work and brought it in and divvied it around, a bit like Father Christmas sharing presents in the office. Those days are gone. Now law firms are expecting their lawyers right from qualification upwards to show an interest in winning work and in wowing clients and getting out there in the market. They're looking for well-rounded lawyers who are good at client relationship management and bringing in more work right from the early days. So how can you do that? Well, my encouragement is get involved actively in client development programs that your department is running. You're never too junior to get involved in that. Showing an enthusiasm to get stuck into pitches when there's a new client opportunity. Why not offer to help put the documentation together for a pitch? To ask to go along to your first one, maybe if you've never done one before, and see how it's done. And why not offer to get involved in pitching yourself? Get involved in networks. It's lovely to have the Bristol Junior Lawyers Division that Roisin is the chair of, that you can get involved with and meet other lawyers. But why not go further afield? Bristol Young Professionals, meet other young professionals from other practice areas that are at your similar level that you can grow with throughout your career. Networking is critical to show that you want to be out and flying the flag for your firm. Look for speaking opportunities to speak at different events hosted by different networks. It's a great opportunity to get your name known at a junior stage or mid-level, senior level, it doesn't matter what level, get your name known as someone in the market who's an expert in your area, and write for trade press articles, whatever that might be. If you can get things published by legal press or even broader afield by your clients, how wonderful is that? And the one thing I want to say, and I think this, I really hope you take to heart, is this isn't something you just do quickly before you put in for a promotion, whether that's from assistant to associate, whether it's from a mid-level associate to senior associate. You don't quickly get out in the market and try and show that you do these things. It needs to be incremental and it needs to be sustainable throughout your career. So you can show this is a part of everything that you're doing in your career. So don't wait until you're 2-3 PQE before you start doing these things. Start doing them right from the early start of your career. People skills. The reality is there's quite a lot of politics involved in promotions internally. And there's so many things that you've got to show, so often things that are intangible, that aren't just like billable hours or, you know, how many matters you've completed on, whatever the measurable might be that you are more used to demonstrating. Sometimes it's the intangibles that you've got to think about as well. And sometimes you're in a very lucky position where you're just right place, right person, right time. Somebody leaves your business or someone retires and you're just in that perfect location to be promoted. Wonderful. If that's you, I'm so delighted for you, but that is pretty rare for that to happen, because most promotions actually have to be worked at, and they actually have to be generated by yourself. And what you can do is ways of showing your wider benefit to your team is showing that you're a good team player, that you are good at bringing your team with you, that you're good at investing in others and helping others. And that might be, training the new person who joins your team and how to use your systems. It might be bringing others on in something you've done and done really well at that they need help with. Delegating, coaching, investing, these are all skills that are equally as important as how much money you bill at the end of the year. If you're wanting to progress through the ranks as a lawyer, the people skills element is vital. And the thing to show is, how does me getting promoted benefit my team? It's something you have to show, as well as why it's going to benefit you. And this is where getting your partnership, your partner sponsor involved, your ally, your champion is so crucial. Because if there are particular things that they think you need to be doing, you can be asking for it. Ask for those opportunities, push hard for it, and get those opportunities to show your wider benefit within the team. Embodying the firm's culture. Culture and fit now is fundamental to every firm, every organization. Every firm are keen to show who they are and what they value, what is the vision and values of the organization. And a big part of getting ahead and getting promoted is showing that you embody those values. And these can be hard sometimes to pin down, or to have a very easy way of demonstrating that you do. But there are plenty of ways that you can show your wider contribution to the firm. You can get involved in things like the firm's ESG policies, maybe their ED&I initiatives, how to attract a broader, more diverse workforce. You might want to get involved in that, doing law fairs, getting involved in speaking at College of Laws, or whatever the case may be, sharing your journey with others and how you've made it through, and bringing others through. You might want to get involved in pro bono initiatives. You might want to get involved in committees. The thing is to show that you are embedded in your organization, that you care about the things that matter to your business. And that's how you're able to be a net contributor to the culture of your firm. Living those values helps when it comes to promotion. So once you've thought of all these building blocks, the question then is, okay, well, what do I do with all these thoughts that I've got rushing around inside my head? Well, that's where consolidating into a business plan or a career plan can be so useful for you. And you might think, well, how do I even start? When do I start that? Well, I always say right from the earliest stages in your career is good to start putting this plan into play and then developing it as it goes on. I always say it's good to invest in this for the long term. It's a working document that you can keep coming back to and refining and changing and adding to, so that when that opportunity arises, you've got something, a working document that's ready to go. And it needs to be personal to you. So what do you need to think about as you're putting it together? Well, number one, you need to think about the firm's strategy that you work in, and make sure that what you are thinking about aligns with where the firm is going, down to your department and down to your team. If you've got an idea in your mind, make sure it fits with where the department's going. But if it's something novel or innovative, there's nothing wrong with that. But this is where that open and honest dialogue with your champion or your supervising partner is so crucial, to make sure that where you want to invest your energies is going to bear fruits for you for the future in terms of where that team is going. You need to be ambitious, but you need to be realistic. You can promise to deliver a £1 billion client next week, but the reality is that's never going to happen. But you can think about how you can show ambition with a healthy dose of realism. And this is where investment from your supervising partner is so key. Is what I'm wanting to do viable? Is the timescale I'm talking about viable? Talk to them about it. I want to get promoted by X. What do I need to do before then to evidence to you that I'm ready for it? This is where your business plan needs to be ambitious and viable. You need to show yourself as a key team member that actually this plan of yours is good for the team. You need to show that it's going to help others in the team. It will bring something new to the team, or new development for the team, or a new stream of work to the team, or something that you're passionate about that will show a real benefit to the team. But you have to show that it's realistic in the current market. So you might have a great idea to develop something new, but you need to look at what the current trends in the market are, and you need to look at what the more longer term trends in the market are. And is what I'm wanting to do with my career actually going to grow, or is it something that just is not commercially viable? Having that conversation early on in your career might save you going down a road for years of something that is not commercially viable. So you need to think about that carefully as you're plotting, as you're thinking, as you're projecting to the future, and keep talking to your ally. And finally is the commerciality of it all. In everything, you have to show how what you want to do with your career is good for the firm's bottom line. It's going to grow something. It's going to not only grow you individually, but it's going to grow your team, your department. You have to show it's commercially good sense. So once you've put all of that together, and this is not a one-off half hour on a Sunday afternoon, this is over time, over months, over years even, that you will develop this plan. The question then is, well, what do you do with it? Well, the starting point is looking at your firm and looking for the opportunities that are available for you to progress. But I guess the question then comes is, well, you know, is it only ever any good for where I am? Or, you know, is there wider applicability of what I've got? And in many industries, and the legal industry is exactly the same, moving a firm at varying points in your career can actually provide a natural opportunity for progression. Because obviously within an internal firm, there's cycles of progression where, you know, maybe promotions are announced every year in, say, May, and you go through a set cycle in order to get promoted. When you move firms and you move into a new role, it does present as an opportunity to reevaluate your level and whether you can take a step up in that move. And when you move, you're benchmarked against the internal criteria for a particular level, but that's at the point at which you move rather than waiting for an annual cycle. And where there are significant barriers to promotion in your current firm, often moving firms can provide a credible alternative as you consider your future. So the big question really is, when you're looking at your business plan, your career plan for your future, what are the blockers to your progression? What are the things that might be standing in your way? Is it the partner in your team who just doesn't support you or doesn't think you're ready? Is it the team? Maybe there's no space in the team for someone to progress because it's top heavy. There's no room for progression. Is it the way the firm's managed? Actually, they've been holding back on promotions recently, maybe not making as many people promoted. Is it the market? The market is not actually in your sector. It's not doing ever so well. So getting promoted is a bit harder at the moment. But I think the hardest one to look at is it me? Am I missing something? Is there something lacking in my skill set? And that's why I'm not getting promoted. And that's why looking at your skills very honestly and continuously getting input on them is so fundamental, because you need to know what your blockers are. Because if it's you need to keep revisiting this plan that I'm talking about, keep getting input and keep getting help. If it's some of those other things, well, then it might be worth you thinking about whether, if you're not getting promoted where you are, if there are opportunities elsewhere. So what are some of the questions you can ask yourself when looking in the external market? Well, number one, will I be able to learn more elsewhere? That's, will I increase in my experience? Is there some experience I'm not getting where I am that I could get somewhere else? Is there more space for me elsewhere? Can I progress faster? That's headroom. Is there better opportunities for promotion? Because maybe it's not as congested at the next rung up to where you're operating at the moment. Another question is, will I be able to do the work I want for the clients I want elsewhere? Maybe broaden your client base from the kind of clients you're acting for at the moment. Maybe there's opportunity to diversify your client base. Another question might be, is this other opportunity somewhere that gives me better opportunities for success? Is it a better platform for my career? That could be down to the reputation of the firm. It could be down to the sectors they operate in. Is it more closely aligned with what you're passionate about? Are they on panels that you'd love to work for that you don't get the opportunity to where you are? Are there partners in the team who have expertise you're really interested in? Looking at those things are so important. And often it can be quite daunting, thinking, well, where do I even start with this? And that's why getting the right advice is critical from people who can help you evaluate your career path and where you might go, what the opportunities might be. And it's what I spend most of my time doing, is helping lawyers throughout their career at all the major milestones and stepping stones, assessing what their career path might be and what the options might be for them. And if that's something that you'd find quite useful, I'm more than happy to set up a career clinic, a kind of an MOT of your career plan, and work out if you're heading in the right direction. So please don't hesitate to get in touch. So in summary, what we've been looking at today and what the key takeaways are, I'm hoping you'll take away from today's talk, is number one, take the time to work out what you want from your career. Speak to the people in your organization who hold the keys to your progression so you can learn what the opportunities are for you and what you need to be doing to meet the criteria in your own business. Work hard right from the early days of your career on your personal business case, taking into account all these factors that we've looked at very briefly today, and be realistic with the likelihood of success that you've got. And if there's something missing, if there's a blocker or a hurdle you need to overcome, what do you need to do early as possible to invest in that area and get the right input, the right advice, and the right support to help you plan and to replan. If anyone's watched Dragon's Den, you might realize that people come with ideas and often they get a kickback and they say, you're not ready, or you need to go away and think about this. And sometimes it takes rethinking and rethinking and rethinking to get it right. But this is your career. You need to own it, and you need to give it careful, timely, deliberate, and ongoing investment, because that's what will make the difference for the duration of your career. Well, I've come to the end of the main part of today's presentation. I hope some of those things have provoked you. What we're now going to do, and what I'm delighted to now do, is introduce our panel who are joining us for the Q&A and who will be popping up on your screen. If anything's particularly jumped out at you, please pop some questions in the Q&A that we can come back round to. But what I'm delighted now to do is to introduce our panel members. So I'm delighted to have Danielle Spalding, who is a managing associate in the property litigation team at Fortansti. Danielle was promoted to managing associate in May 22, so earlier this year, having returned from maternity leave in September 21. I'm also delighted to introduce Shelby Payne, who is an associate in the real estate team at Bevan Britton, who was promoted to associate also in May 22 this year. So it's a joy to have you both with us. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to kick off with an opening question for Danielle, if I might. Danielle, you've obviously been promoted a couple of times in your career. When you first started thinking about wanting to get promoted, how did you start? How did you start even formulating a plan for how to get yourself promoted?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. It's kind of a difficult one to kind of overcome. You really have to think about what you're doing. And I think from my perspective at Fortansti, we've got a pretty structured career framework. So how I began both times when I've been promoted really was to download the framework, most recently for managing associate, and I started working through the criteria and the skills. So basically just writing down examples to demonstrate all the areas that I was hitting, and it basically became my spreadsheet of what I was doing. That then helped me identify some of the areas where I perhaps needed to focus a bit more. And in focusing my mind on what the gaps were, it gave me a bit of structure and a plan to work towards. So I then went off and kind of used all my internal resources that I could. So our skills academy, I spoke to my mentor and the partners in the team to get those opportunities that you'd mentioned when you're doing your kind of presentation, Sheldon, about what did I need to tick off the outstanding points and really pushing for those opportunities. And as I was going through that process, I was updating my spreadsheet as I went, and it put me in a position really to be able to speak with my team and group leader and effectively say, I want to go for promotion. I think I tick the following boxes. Here's my spreadsheet. You know, I'm working on these few further points. What do you think? And that then really started the conversation about timings and the process. And it meant I could really back up my request with lots of supporting examples. And it basically made my request more credible.
That's brilliant. That's so helpful. And I think that idea of having that tracker, that spreadsheet that links to your own internal framework is fantastic, because you need to make sure you're hitting the notes, as you've said, in terms of what your firm would be looking for. That's fantastic. Shelby, if I might bring you in now, when you started thinking about promotion, and obviously having been promoted to associate, that's your first big promotion in your career post-qualification. Where did you go for input or support as you prepared, I guess, your promotion plan?
I think I was listening to you say, be brave, Sheldon. I think your initial conversation with your supervising partner is really important. They know you, they know your style of working, and they can kind of give you the right background initially. But ultimately, as this was my first promotion in my team, I've got quite a well-rounded team. There are senior associates in my team too, and other associates, and they were people that I was able to speak to quite candidly about how the process works and what I should expect throughout the process, rather than it feel like a really taboo subject that nobody really talks about. And I think if you're intending to go for promotion, your team members who have been through it would be more than happy to explain these processes to you, so it makes it a lot easier and less daunting when it comes to actually getting involved in that process.
That's brilliant. Yeah, make use of people who have been through the same process as you. It makes complete sense. And people who know your business and can advise you. That's fantastic. Coming back to you, Danielle, as you were, I guess, looking at promotion and what that would entail and progressing through your career, what were some of the, I guess, unexpected challenges that came along, or things that came along that you had to overcome and think about overcoming as you prepared for promotion? Anything that you had to really give your mind to or set your sights on to overcome?
Yeah, I think there are probably two for me, really. The first one was juggling my workload with making sure I had enough time to prepare and dedicate to the process. And how I did that was basically just trying to be really disciplined and working time into my day to make sure I was prepared enough. And that's something that's really stuck with me now as I work towards the next level. So if I've got a success story, and whether that's kind of a client win or a good piece of technical work, I put it in my spreadsheet against the framework, because, and you were saying this earlier, that, you know, it's a long process, but these things are less daunting if you plug away at them over a good period of time. And also, you know, let's face it, we all forget about what we've done when we're busy, and you can't remember kind of the good thing you did last week. So I think it's just keeping track of it, and being quite structured and strict with yourself, of working time into your working day if you possibly can. And then I think the second one for me is a bit more of a personal one, which you already mentioned, but was going on maternity leave. So I had some time out of business and completely off working towards my plan. And I really didn't want that to interfere with my promotion. And it was a real personal challenge for me. But I suppose how I overcame that challenge was that I had a great mentor at Fraternity, who's a senior partner. She had just had a baby after being promoted to partner. So I was able to go to her and chat through my concerns, which really helped. But I suppose what I needed to remember was that, you know, Fraternity are really open and forward thinking, so it didn't have any impact. And it was really just my own worry to overcome. But I think it's just about thinking these things through and talking to people, and you can overcome most challenges if you've got somebody who you can talk to.
That's so helpful, Danielle. Thank you so much, obviously, for sharing something very personal with us. But I guarantee you're not alone in having those thoughts in terms of, you know, maternity leaves or career breaks or whatever it might be. How will that impact my career and my progression? And I guess your advice is have the conversation. Don't be afraid to have the conversation. That's brilliant. Thank you so much. Shelby, coming back to you. Obviously, we've all lived through a rather bizarre couple of years where we've all been in lockdown and had to adjust to working from home. And then we've kind of been back to work, many of us in a hybrid way where maybe we're not around our team all day, every day. How have you adapted to that in terms of getting promoted through all of that, on the back of all of that? How have you stood out, or how have you made sure that your contribution or your efforts are noticed? What are some of the tips you can give us on how you've managed that?
So I think coming back to your point about having your own personal profile, be that within the firm, be that within like the Bristol area, you need to still be visible. So I found that when I was working from home and it was all a bit strange, you know, go to a virtual seminar, go to any virtual events. I mean, now you can go to in-person events, be those at your firm, be those with networking groups in the junior divisions. We have lots of them in Bristol. So attend those, meet other like-minded people and get your name out there and have those conversations. And I think within the firm generally, while I find that personally at Bevan Britton at the moment, we don't actually have a coming into the office policy at the moment. We can work from home 5 days a week, and it's you know, it's not frowned upon. So it's all about communication and just being available. And I don't mean being available after you finish work and on weekends and it's silly o'clock at night, but being available to junior members of staff who might need some help from you, picking up a social communication on Teams, being able to meet deadlines that supervising partners give you for work, and really showing that even though you're at home, you're trustworthy, you're dependable, you're somebody who does stand out. And I think just keeping up that communication with those people, because they are the people ultimately who are going to help you with your progression. So ultimately keep them sweet.
Keep them sweet. I like that. That's got to be the motto for progression. Keep them sweet. I love it. It's brilliant. Turning now to reflecting on your journeys. Danielle, what do you wish you knew then that you know now? I guess some of maybe some of the myths about getting promoted or something that might have helped you, or just anything you wish you'd known, the old you had known that you know now, that might have made the journey a bit easier. Is there a particular thing that stands out that you wish you'd known?
Yeah, I think there's a couple. So the key one for me was about communication. So no one knows better than you what you're doing, and it's something that I still kind of have to push myself to do, but you have to shout about what you're doing, and whether that's good technical work, client wins, or relationship management. I wish someone had just said to me, you have to shout about these things, because it's really important to find an effective way of communicating your accomplishments, and whether that is speaking up at team or office meetings or social media posts, or basically just letting your manager know. I think I wrongly assumed that people knew that I was good at my job and they knew what I was doing, and you really can't rely on that. So I think communication was one of the key things for me, and also something for kind of a bit of a confidence boost. People aren't looking for reasons for you to fail, they're looking for reasons for you to succeed. And in particular, you know, Fatan's a real champion of people, and they want to promote internal talent. And I think if someone had sat me down beforehand and just reminded me of that, it would have really helped my confidence going into the process. So I think it's just having those things in the back of your mind.
That's brilliant. Shelby?
Yeah, absolutely, Danielle. I was just nodding along at absolutely everything you said there. But I think for me as well, it feels like promotion was kind of a taboo subject that you don't speak about. You just see people getting promotion, you think, oh, they must be amazing, like I wonder what they've done to get there. And actually you'd be surprised, your supervising partner or your supervisor wants to talk to you about this, that if you want to progress, they want to help you. You know, it doesn't mean that they'll be able to do it within 2-3 months, but they might be able to put you on the right path to be able to help you get to that stage. And like Danielle said, Bevans is the same with promoting internally. They want good people they have to remain at the firm. So, you know, you are really valuable, and you should have those conversations if it's something you're interested in.
Absolutely. Fantastic. And for both of you now, I guess you're looking to the next stages in your careers, and I guess promotion isn't a one-off thing where you hit your promotion and that's it, you're done and dusted. In terms of how soon after your promotions are you, because you've obviously both got promoted this year, how soon in your own mind have you started thinking about what comes next, and what do you start doing once you've been promoted in terms of what comes next for you? Danielle, should we start with you? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, of course. I think for me, it's I mentioned at the outset, it's starting on my framework spreadsheet again, and that's a bit of an ongoing mission for me. I try and just be really structured and intentional about the areas that I want to work on. So I'm not saying get promoted and then the next day start again towards next level, but I think it's an ongoing process. So, you know, I am already looking at the framework for the next level. I'm looking at those areas that I need to work on to hit that criteria, and I'm having those conversations as early as possible to just seek out the opportunities, because effectively, you know, it's an ongoing process to create that credible business case. So I'm looking at ways to demonstrate what I'm doing, how I'm going to do it, and by when. And I'm always trying to relate that back to the firm's strategy and aims. And just like you said, Sheldon, when you were going through your piece, just keeping that updated and tweaking it when I need to make sure that it's all kind of fitting in with the firm's strategy.
That's brilliant. What about you, Shelby?
I mean, I would say keep doing what you're doing. Once you get promoted, you don't get promoted one day and then you're instantly meant to know absolutely everything that level knows. Technically, if you're being promoted, you should already be at that level, and you are, you know, you're being rewarded with that promotion because you are doing that job already. So if you are still continuing to work at that level and progressing, going up, then naturally, you know, it will progress into the next level. I did something very similar to Danielle with her framework, with having, most firms I think have job descriptions for each level. Download that as soon as you can and look through it, and like Danielle said, write down everything you do that's really good and that you're really proud of, and tell everybody about it, because I think maybe as lawyers we focus on the things maybe that don't go right the first time, and we don't focus on those really good things that are actually really important, and just make sure they're all there. Because when it comes down to writing your application or however you're dealing with it, it'll be so much easier to remember what you did 2 years ago rather than have to sift through all your memories from the last couple of years you've been in practice.
That's really helpful both. Thank you so much. And just two bits of advice that you might give anyone who's on this webinar, who's just maybe getting going or just thinking about the next promotion, 2 little bits of advice that you would leave them with, that you think might help them on their way. Danielle, anything from you?
Yeah, the word bold came up earlier, and I remember when I was going for senior associate, it was the earliest opportunity that I could have applied, and my supervisor at the time said to me that my application was bold given my PQE, and that really stuck with me because I just wanted to give it a go and see where I got to. So I think my first piece of advice is sometimes you have to be bold, and you have to have that confidence to make people aware of the good work that you're doing. And I'm not saying, you know, push for a promotion if everyone is telling you aren't ready, but if you have really planned ahead, you know you hit the framework or the job description, then you are really likely to have a compelling case. So go for it. And, you know, if you're not successful the first time, you've been through that process, you've got the experience, and you're on everybody's radar for next time. So I think being bold sometimes really does pay off. And the second thing, and Sheldon, you mentioned this, is it's been really crucial for my development, is finding someone who really champions you. So somebody that you can bounce ideas off, talk openly with, that challenges you as well. So it isn't just like, oh, you know, that's a really good idea, but challenges you on your ideas and kind of picks you up on the holes in it, so you can really develop those ideas, and someone who just pushes you forward. That's just been invaluable for kind of my progression today.
That's brilliant. Thank you. From you, Shelby?
Danielle, your answers are so good. I wish I was on this call a year ago and I felt like really spurred on. I think my first thing would be brave. Like I said, have those conversations with the people that want you to progress. They don't want you to fail. They want you to do really well. So be brave, have those conversations, but go in prepared. You know, make your case. You know if you're at your firm that you're in, you're good enough to be there, so you're just as good enough to be able to progress within the firm. And I'd say the second piece of advice is be prepared for it. So, you know, start now, start going to these networking events, start thinking about, you know, if you're, for example, I'm in real estate, is there a real small part of real estate you want to be in? Like, is it going to be quite bespoke? Is there room for you there? Is it something you could bring forward to your supervising partner? And really have your business case and your profile ready to go, and just keep adding to it. And you'll be surprised when you speak to, as Danielle said, she's got a good mentor. If you speak to even your colleagues in the same team as you, they may have other things about you that you've not even thought about they think are excellent. So speak to your team and you know, lean on them during the process, because it is a bit scary, but it's also really exciting. So you just got to go for it, be brave, and have those conversations.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I mean, for anyone on the call, I'm sure they feel very spurred on by your encouragement. And I think that is the exciting thing, in terms of feeling you're not alone in it or coming to it fresh, but actually there are plenty of good people who can give advice in your team around you, or people you know who can spur you on in it. I think that's fantastic. Thank you so much to you both for sharing so personally about your own journeys. It'd be good to spend the last minutes we've got on Q&A. So I'm going to hand back to Roisin.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone. That was wonderful. Something you sort of touched upon there, Sheldon, I think these conversations are very energizing. So that's how I feel after your talk today. You're sort of putting the client work to one side for a moment, whilst sort of reflecting on the great moments that you've had for your clients and the victories you've had. You're sort of focusing back on yourself for a moment and re-energizing yourself and saying, what is driving me forwards? What am I passionate about? And then how do I, you know, translate all of that into something that continues to benefit and spur me on in this career? So I think these conversations are really good to have as frequently as you can have them, really. And I like the idea of having a spreadsheet and reminding yourself how far you've come. So some really good points there. I think the first question, Sheldon, would be for you, because it's quite a general one. And that is, if you're okay to answer this, what advice would you give to someone who is stuck between two potential career paths? So I don't know the specifics of this. This could be, you know, law versus non-law. It could be an area versus a different area, in-house versus a commercial firm. So what kind of tips would you provide to this person?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's hard not knowing the details in terms of what the options are. But what I always say is, and I say it to everyone I work with, all the lawyers I work with, you know, the job lawyers do is a tough one, and it's long hours. It takes a lot of investment. You want to be happy doing it. And if you're in a practice area or doing something that doesn't make you happy, that doesn't mean you skip through the fields every morning to work, you know, because we all wake up on a Monday morning and, you know, don't want to open our eyes. But it's about, you need to love what you do, and you need to feel, you know, there's so many factors to it, as I went through. You need to feel it's got viability, you know. And if you're looking at two options, and one, the market, no matter what goes on in the market, it's going to flourish, and the other one is cyclical with the market, and you're thinking, which one do I go for? You want to think about sustainability of your career and being able to progress. So you need to weigh up, you know, this goes all the way back to being a trainee and looking at your seats and deciding which seats do I want to do. Even at that point, you've got to look at the market and think, well, where's the growth? Where's the opportunity? Where's my firm heading? What do I love? So there's so many factors to it. Do a little matrix. I once worked with a partner who did a matrix of opportunities and put all the good, the bad, the middle, the what's missing, and filled out the matrix, and then added up the numbers and went with the numbers. I mean, it seems almost counterintuitive, but it was which one has the most ticks in the boxes. And sometimes you've got to do that exercise to work out what you really want. And you might be surprised what comes out at the bottom in the numbers. Might not be what you thought you really wanted until you actually put down all the things that matter to you.
Yeah, great answer. Thank you, Sheldon. I think I found myself in a bit of a similar position on qualifying, and it's very difficult to make the decision, but you're very fortunate to be in that position where you're facing two potential career paths, both of which energize you and interest you. So yeah, a difficult matrix, but you're in a very privileged position to find yourself there, I think. If I could put a question to Shelby now, what are your top tips for trainees about to become NQs and how to manage that transition? So I suppose with one eye on promotion, but, you know, qualifying as an NQ, is in itself a promotion of sorts. So how would you manage that, and what tips would you give?
Similar tip to before, where again, when you're about to qualify into an NQ, you're already kind of doing that role already. So as a trainee, if you're in your final seat, you know, you're going to be there almost prepared. You don't log on or overnight when you become an NQ and you're like, right, I know everything an NQ should know, this is it, don't worry. You know, it's a learning curve, it's a process. So give yourself a bit of slack, but also it's so long ago. I'm thinking it's like 4 years ago for me, which isn't that long, I appreciate. Picking the right firm, picking the right team, using, you know, knowing that you're going to be in a team that you've probably worked in a seat before, and you appreciate their style of working and how you fit in, how you slot in, and if not, having those conversations again about how you can best be utilised and work in that team effectively. You don't want to go into a team where you don't have a lot of exposure. You want to be able to do try everything. Like in real estate was the only example I have, really. There's so many different limbs you can run off of. Try and do a little bit of everything. It might be that you end up in one team when you newly qualify, but you might think, oh, actually I really enjoy this more. Is there a way I can bring this into my profession? That might be something you then focus on when you do start progressing. I was quite general at first, and then I focused a bit more on healthcare, for example, and I really enjoyed the healthcare work, so I then started to focus on that when it came to my promotion time. So yeah, is that a tip? I'm not sure if that's a tip actually. But yeah, you know, put your finger in all of those pies when you do qualify, and even if you don't like some of them, just give it a go, because you might be surprised.
Yeah. And I think building on from what you've just said, Shelby, the time does go very quickly, so enjoy it. You're an NQ, it's, you know, opportunity still to ask a lot of questions, to try different things, to identify areas that you are less comfortable with and try and build your expertise in that area. If I could send another one your way, Shelby, sorry. What is something that juniors may forget to do after qualifying? So, you know, I suppose if you had a little checklist of a few things that you think, you know, I've just qualified, it's good to have one eye on these few things, what would make that list?
I'm not sure how to answer this one. We could go back to what we were discussing before. If you've just qualified, make sure you know the job description, you know the job role. Keep an eye on that. You don't want certain things to slip, so that, you know, again, it's a learning curve, but you want to be able to show that you're fulfilling the whole job role. That doesn't just include client relationship, matter work, working with supervisors. It does include business development, does include networking. You know, it's very, very likely your firm will want you to be visible and out there, and you know, going out to meet potential clients, or at least giving it a go. So I think keep an eye on the fact that although it might not be your firm or your supervising partner might not tell you explicitly what they expect of you, these kind of things are quite general in the ethos of your firms, and I think you'll get a real vibe for that. Especially if you're training at the firm you qualify into, you should kind of know what they may expect from an NQ. And then if you do think you've forgotten something, speak to somebody who's a year qualified, 2 years qualified. They've been where you are, they're happy to help you and talk to you. Most juniors are very happy to you know, help each other. We all want to progress, we all want to help each other get to those positions. So it's all about, I think everything is about communication when it comes to joining these roles.
Thank you, Shelby. I think that's really good. And then Danielle, we've come to a final question. I'd like to put this one to you. We talked about making sure that your contribution is noticed, so sort of shouting from the rooftops a bit when you've got a victory, or, you know, you've learned something new, or you've tried something different and it's worked out better. How can people go about making sure that their contribution is being noticed, and how can we measure that? Is that measurable, or do you just have to kind of rely on the fact that if you keep putting yourself out there, it will be noticed?
Yeah, I think kind of comes back to my communication point that, you know, some of us do feel a bit kind of embarrassed, not embarrassed, but we don't like speaking out about what we're doing, because you don't want to be that person that's kind of comes across as boasting about all the wonderful things they're doing. But I think it's finding that level of effective communication that you're comfortable with. And, you know, we've all got different styles. Some people love standing up at office meetings and saying, this week I've done X, Y, Z, but that's not really me. So, you know, I kind of do it in more subtle ways. I'll speak to, you know, my mentor, my supervising partner, and then, you know, like I said about finding your champion, if you found your champion, they'll do the shouting for you. And, you know, if you're at that junior level and you're a bit embarrassed to stand up in a room full of partners and say, oh, I did this great thing, because you think, oh, it can't be as important as what they're all doing, get your champion to do that for you. They will always want to do that. And I think that's something I definitely did when I was junior. You know, I'd say to my supervisor, oh, last week somebody said something about this piece of work, and he'd be like, great, I'll mention it next week at the huddle. So I think, and you can measure it in terms of, you know, your profile in the firm, I think, sometimes. So you know if you're being well received, if, you know, people come up and talk to you in the kitchen and things like that, and if you're known around the firm for your particular area of expertise. So I think you'll know, because of your internal profile, if these things are being noticed. And also more structured things such as annual performance reviews. These things are going to come up there, and, you know, if they don't, make sure that they do, because that's really your opportunity to really hammer home what you've been doing. And that's then reflected in perhaps the rating that you get, or, you know, whether your firm has a bonus structure, all those kind of things. I think it's just, but the key thing is that you have to step outside that comfort zone, and you have to communicate it, and you just have to find a way that you're comfortable doing that.
Brilliant, thank you so much. Sheldon, I don't know if you have any final words before I wrap up.
Yes, I mean, thank you so much to Shelby and Danielle for just sharing so freely from your experience. Just to say, for anyone who is at the junior end of their career, I'm sorry, I don't have the flyers yet because it's in February, but we do have an approaching qualification event that we're doing with Bristol Junior Lawyers Division, where we'll look a lot more at what trainees need to think about, you know, paralegals looking ahead to what qualification might look like and things to bear in mind. That's on Tuesday, the 28th of February, and it's in person. Woohoo! So there'll be drinks, there'll be nibbles. It'll be at 6 p.m. at RPC's Bristol offices. We do have a sign-up link. The invite is almost ready. I'm just waiting on my marketing team. But as soon as that's ready, we'll make sure it's distributed to this list. But you will be able to sign up for that in February, and they'll be looking ahead to how to get ready for qualification. So some of these questions we will definitely come back to again around NQs and what to think about. But that's on the way. But just on behalf of us, I just want to say a big thank you to Roisin for having us, to Danielle and Shelby for fabulous contributions that is so real from people's lives. It makes such a difference. And if anyone's got any questions, you can make contact with me. If a career MOT would be helpful, or just a direction with a starting point of where to begin with that, I'm happy to help with that. So my contact details are on the screen there, and I'll circulate them. But on behalf of me, thank you so much for joining us today, and I'll hand over to Roisin to wrap us up.
Thank you very much, Sheldon. Yeah, I mean, I've known Sheldon for a number of years now, and I'd feel very comfortable going to him for a bit of a conversation and direction in the sort of situation where I'm thinking about promotion or thinking about a career move. So I would encourage you all, if you've got questions, or if it feels like a pivotal moment for you, to have that conversation. Some really good advice today. So I hope that there's been a lot of notes made and points to take away. And I hope you've all felt energized as I have whenever we get to talking about this topic. So thank you very much for coming. As I said, this was one of the Lunch and Learn webinars put on by Bristol Law Society for our junior members. Bristol Law Society really want to cover off the issues that you're interested in, as do Bristol Junior Lawyers. So we work together very well for things like this. Bristol Junior Lawyers are still recruiting for our next committee, for the next committee year. So if anyone wants more visibility, to meet more people like Sheldon who, you know, are very active in the Bristol area, then please do consider putting an application in. And thank you everyone for coming today.